Recently, I went ahead and played every single Ork Detachment found in the new 10th edition Ork Codex. And trust me when I say this, this was the most overrated and unnecessary experience I think I've ever done in my entire life. It took so long to get that many games in with that many detachments. But this has taught me so much about each individual's detachment's fundamental playstyle, perspective on certain matchups, how they play in this versus that, and how you build them, that it's actually insane how much knowledge I've been able to gather from each individual detachment. And that's what I'm doing in this video. You see, instead of teaching you a kind of theory-based way of playing them like I have done in my previous videos, where I talk about stratagems, enhancements, how they should work, how GW wants them to work, which is all good and fine to teach you that, I'm going to be teaching you how they work on a tabletop perspective, on a hands-on perspective, and how they fundamentally can operate when being a detachment in the Ork Codex. Not how they should work, how they actually work, and how based off this information you can pick the perfect Ork detachment meant for you and can start building in the right direction depending on your own individual biases or how you want to go in the future of 10th edition. So let's not waste any more time, let's just go straight into it with how you can pick the perfect Ork detachment based off my experience of playing them on a hands-on perspective. Now, very first one's going to be Green Tide. How the hell does Green Tide work? Let's give an intro to this detachment. Well, very first, this army is not a killy army. Let me just tell you that right now. You may think, well, with that many boys, surely you're doing somewhat damage, but trust me, you are not. Having strength 4, I think 3 attacks, damage 1, AP 1 weapons, even if you have 20 of them, it just doesn't do anything. That strength 4 just does not help them at all. It's like literally stronger than, it's like less tough than anything in the game. Like, you get any unit that's not an infantry-based unit, somewhat elite unit, trust me, they will out-tough your boys. Like, it's just, you're not getting damage off them. But they're doing something a little bit different. They're doing a never die approach. Even though you think they're killy, trust me, they're not. They are never die approach. But they do it in a very different way. You see, instead of being a really tough army, a really strong army, an army that gets buffs continuously that keeps them alive, or an army that is consistently resurrecting at a reasonable pace like Necrons, this army just has so many units on the board that when a unit does die and they get resurrected, it doesn't even matter overall because you've got like freaking 6-7 squads behind you doing secondaries and absolutely destroying the OC points. Like, it doesn't even matter. This army works into a never die perspective where like your one unit will die and then there's like 3 other units over here and then the enemy will focus on those units and this unit just comes back with like, come on lads, or a Pain Boy resurrect. Like, you have no idea how much annoying this unit is. It spreads your enemy thin to a ridiculous extent. You have to deal with you yourself have to deal with so many things at once, but your enemy has to deal with even more things. Trust me, when you've got 8, 10, 6, depending on how many boy squads you have in your army, doing something at once, each individual thing having 20 OC, or I'm sorry, 40 OC on that point, plus whatever your character, if you're running a character on them's OC is, trust me, you're having an annoying time going to deal with them. So this army solely works into being an annoying, hard to deal with army that pretty much just doesn't die in a different fundamental way than most never die armies do. Now that's the basic introduction to the army. Now how are we going to go in general list themes? Well, you're taking lots of boys. And when I say lots of boys, I mean lots of boys. A ridiculous amount of boys to the point where it's absolutely insane how much space you need to carry them. When I was taking my case with me, I needed to have the full box of boys, and then another box to take all my characters. Like, I didn't want to lay them on top of them, obviously, but, like, you have no idea how many models you actually are going to have in this army. Like, when you see a proper, like, Green Tide army, you'll be shocked how many boys is in one army. Like, it's absolutely ridiculous. So, you need lots of boys. And if you think you have enough boys, trust me, you need double that many boys. Now, War Boss, Pain Boys, and Weird Boys is also what you need in this army. All those are simply fundamentally going to make your boys better, because the army rule obviously states that only boys benefit from the 5 invulnerable save, and whatever the 10 plus model buffs is. And literally all the enhancements and stratagems work solely, well, not enhancements, but stratagems solely into boys. Resurrecting boys, making boys tougher, having that 6-inch consolidation with boys. Like, all these things that work, like, they're meant for boys. The whole attachment is meant for boys. So, all your bosses, all your characters are going to be based on making the boys either better in a certain field, or just generally making the boys harder to kill, because obviously that's what they want to be doing. So war bosses, pain boys, weird boys are good. War bosses you're taking because obviously you want the war boss, you want some damage because the boys do no damage at all. Pain boys to resurrect, to get that D3 once per game resurrect ability, and weird boys to have some fundamental teleporting if you feel like that what it is. Obviously you're not taking pretty much any trucks in this detachment, so having some movement with weird boy can work in a decent extent. And creative things you may think of like Gazgol, because he can work really well with lethal hits. Like, he can actually make the boys somewhat killy. So if you want to take Gazgol, fair enough. You can think of some creative ideas, but honestly, fall back on war bosses, pain boys, and weird boys. They'll always be your best friend in this detachment. Now, is this detachment for you? Well, first of all, do you like running lots of things? Because you have to if you run this detachment. Trust me, you do. And if that's so, you have to be really good at dealing with multiple situations at once. When I was playing with them, I think I had like 7, 8 different interactive things happening at once. When I was playing my regular lists, I would have like 1, 2, 3 interactive things happening at once, be able to constantly switch between them. Okay, there's a fight over here, I have to hold this OC over here, I have to defend back here. With your boys, trust me, you got, okay, I got 5 things happening over there, I got 4 things here, I got 6 squads up there. Like, you've got a lot of things happening at once. So if you can multitask really well and continuously put your movement position in a way that benefits most of the squads in the area you're doing with, and you can use the OC of the boys in a very fundamental way that really counters your enemy's army, or you can position your boys in a way that really just messes with the enemy's head, and you can do with lots of things at once, then I think boys is actually going to be, or the green tide's going to be really good for you. Who's next on this very, very long list? Well, not very long, but unnecessarily long list for Ork attachments. Now, next one's going to be Bully Boys. Bully Boys and Green Tide, in my opinion, are run very specifically into certain units. This attachment focuses heavily on the elite side of Ork. So this is not just like regular kind of warhorde action. This is like elite Orks. This is all about the Orks that are going to be doing the highest toughness, have the highest toughness, have the highest damage, and are going to be having a little bit less unit counts than maybe your regular warhorde list, but are going to be making up with the amount of damage and the amount of damage they can take overall. So ultimately, this army is basically just focused just solely on Mega Knobs and Knobs, benefiting them with 2 wars and just giving them so many unnecessary abilities to just do more damage or survive. It's absolutely crazy. Like the ability to teleport in with Teleporter, deep striking with Mega Knobs, having the ability to have the Armor of Contempt. I think it's that 4 up critical hits when engagement range in the war. Like, all these things just make them so much more killy. Basically, this army is all about the elite side of Orcs, so if you like elite, this might be for you, my friend. Now, list general themes. What are we looking at in the general themes? Well, Mega Knobs are, first of all, the most common thing you'll find in this list. Mega Knobs, Mega Knobs, Mega Knobs, because they don't die anymore. That devastating wounds have been changed to a 4-up Feel No Pain with the Codex release, and they are just impossible to kill now. Ridiculous. And in Bully Boys, you get 2 wars. That's 2 rounds of 4-up Feel No Pains on 4-up Feel No Pains on 2-up Invulnerable Save T6 models, who are already going to be running 6 squads with potentially Gazgol or another unit like Big Mecha Mega Armor, who are giving them that 4-up Invulnerable Save and allow them to actually resurrect models at a consistent pace. So Mega Knobs are a pain to kill. This army, trust me, is a never die army in a never die sense, but in a very heavy never die sense. Now, next one's going to be Knobs. Knobs are your more damage dealers at this point. You see, Mega Knobs they're still damage dealers, but they've really cranked back into your units that are just meant for tanking. Because before, they got devastating wounds, so maybe it made sense to take them for killing, but now, crank back with Feel No Pain, they're your never die units. They still do damage, but they're really your never die units and like holding down point units. Knobs are all about that damage output. They get that war boss leading them. It's absolutely crazy how much damage they can do. You know this from the index. Ridiculously good, amazing. Gaz is also like a must take in this list because you literally get 2 wars, and I think you get 2 lethal hit stages. I wouldn't be guaranteed on that though. I'm pretty sure you wouldn't because Makari's only once per game. But the point is, Gaz just generally hits hard. And in this list, you're taking Mega Knobs, and you can just give Mega Knobs the craziest buffs in the world. Give them the ability to have that critical hits on 5s now, along with the ability to have that -1 to hit and -1 to wound. You're taking Gaz. Beast Boss and Beast Snagger Boys are optional, but they are very fundamentally welcomed in this list, and can actually work very well for me if you know how to use them. War Boss and Mega Armor, Big Mech and Mega Armor, those 2 are going to be running with Mega Knobs, making them so much better. War Boss and Mega Armor for making them a bit more killy and being a cheaper version of Gazgol. Big Mech and Mega Armor simply there to just keep on resurrecting. I remember in my list, I think I had a split of like 3-2. Three Big Mech and Mega Armors and, no, that's too many. Hold on. I think I had, no, it was 2-1. It was like 2-1, or I think it was 1-1 or 2-1. But the point is, you're getting a pretty nice even split depending on how you build them in an efficient lighting. Honestly, Big Mech and Mega Armor I think is just better because he just makes the Mega Knobs so hard to kill, and Mega Knobs are already meant not to die anyway. So my guess is take maybe one War Boss and Mega Armor for that benefits and that teleporter ability, to like drop them in, but like have 2 Big Mech and Mega Armors just to keep on resurrecting and keep on being strong Mega Knob units. War Boss is going to be going with knobs, makes them better, makes them efficient. You know this already. I've talked about it so many times on my channel. War Boss just gives them so many buffs, crazy damage. They have nerfed them now, so it's only -1 to wound if the strength is greater than the toughness, or it's only -1 to wound if if the strength is greater than toughness. I think that's how it works. Yes, they have been nerfed, but not too bad. So, is this attachment for you? Well, first of all, do you like taking bucket loads of Mega Knobs and bucket loads of knobs? Because there really isn't much creativity in this list. Similar to Green Tide, you're not going to be experimenting too much. You know the gist. It's knobs, Mega Knobs, Control-C, Control-V. So, if you want to go with a bit more creativity, I would say don't run Blue Boys or Green Tide. But if you like the idea of running consistent amounts of Mega Knobs, doing high amounts of damage, output, not necessarily having too much board control, I mean still having board control, but really focusing heavily on things like high damage outputs and being efficient between switching between defensive and offensive, I reckon this list could be for you. And if it's more or less if you're good with dealing with Mega Knobs and you're good with dealing with knobs and you like that efficient elite standpoint, I think this list is really good for you. But who's next on this list?